Hey, I'm Mike.
Hey, I'm Ethan.
Hey, I'm Honey.
I watched the first half of The Guilt Trip.
I watched the second half of The Guilt Trip.
And I've watched all of The Guilt Trip.
And this is the other half. Streisand on the beach. Welcome back to the very last episode of Streisand on the Beach with our co-host, our guest host from the very first Streisand on the Beach episode. Honeybees is back to talk to us about The Guilt Trip.
I pulled my own little guilt trip by forcing my way into another episode of the other half because basically I'm the Barbara Streisand of this episode.
Well, you wanted to make sure we made it through this journey all the way through. You know, after we've watched the other three movies, I guess, if you starting on it. You want to make sure we made it a-okay at the end, and you want to know that we made it without your guidance. You know, you set us off strong.
And I'm so proud of you two.
World.
You've gone through 3 musicals, and I said, the last movie we should watch is this, because I honestly, I was talking about it when I was rewatching it the other day, and I said, this may be her final film, because Barbara doesn't have many films. She only has like 19 movies she starred in her like 50-plus year career, because she's picky. But I also wonder why she picked this.
Well, this is what I was so surprised about. So, yeah, like a little bit behind the scenes. Like, I went to Honeybees. Like, what movies should we watch for this? What would you recommend? And you included this one, and I was like, are you sure about this one? And you're like, yeah, we have to talk about this movie. So I was under the impression, I was like, this is going to be a fucking, like, surprise smash film. This is going to be a diamond in the rough. Nope.
I do stand firm, though. I do stand firm that she gives a great performance.
She was expected to be nominated for Golden Globe for this movie.
And she should have been. I think she should have been.
She's giving a real, like, honestly, she is the best part of this movie. Like, the writing, the direction, like Seth Rogan isn't doing anything spectacular here. She is, like, doing a real performance in this. She's, like, crying.
It feels like it feels like an actor finally decided to show up to one of these Judd Apatow likes.
And the other thing about it that is interesting is this is 40 years later after Yentl. Like, to the same, it was 2012, that was 1982. So, like, it's just kind of crazy that it's like we started with, one of her greatest achievements, and we're ending with God knows what this is.
This is going to be one of her last achievements. I think you're right. I don't know if she'll be in another film. So let me. I guess no. Honeybees. Tell us about when you saw this movie. Did you see it in theaters?
No, I saw it at home because I don't think it was in theaters long enough. But it came up. I've just been on my Barbara thing for years, and I just was. Ironically, this is the first Seth Rogen thing I had ever seen, because I don't watch his movies with the movies that he's made, because they are not for me, right. And it actually made me into a Seth Rogen fan. And I have a crush on him because I think he's so sexy now. But it was like
adorable.
It was probably on some streaming service, probably on Netflix, and I watched it, and it's been 12 years later. I just was really moved by her performance. I was like, she's still got it, because I don't like the Mia Fockers or anything like that.
I don't like that stuff either. I agree that she's giving way more than this movie's offering her. I do think that, like, Rogen is doing an okay job here. I think this is around the time that he wanted to be taken a bit more seriously.
Yeah.
He's doing a bit more stuff here as well.
It makes me wonder, literally why this movie was made. Because why?
It doesn't. Well, it kind of has it has a vibe that I did not expect, right? Because I knew this was going to be a comedy, because it's like, oh, Seth Rogen's in it. He's funny. It's got a picture of her pinching his cheek, all funny. It's going to be like a fun trip where she's going to be guilting him the whole time, and it's going to be like a little road comedy like that. But it's like, it's not that funny.
It isn't that funny.
It's not like unfunny.
I just looked up the Wikipedia, and apparently it's based on the real-life trip between the screenwriter Dan Fogelman and his mother from New Jersey to Las Vegas. So, and this guy went on to write the show that I do not watch, This Is Us. So it has that
God, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same shit where it's like it's kind of like trying to be a comedy, but it's not that funny, so it's just like schmaltzy, but not like in a nice way. Like, it is so This Is Us. That explains a lot. Because like I was sitting through big portions of this movie. it's like not funny. It's funny because like Barbara's such a charismatic like screen presence, and she does such a good job of playing like this mom who's like overprotective and cares so much about her kid. That works really well, and Rogan is he's playing a different role than usual. Usually he's sort of like the obnoxious like stoner like guy, and here he's playing more of like a straight.
He's the straight man to her.
He's the straight man to her. Yeah, and it works like that. That chemistry works, but like the writing is really fucking weak in this film. Like there's some moments in this movie that don't go anywhere, and I can't wait to tell you. But even in the first half, it's just like, what is this doing? It just feels like it's just adding to the runtime, which isn't even that long. It's not even that long of a movie, and it feels.
This is the problem I have with a lot of just road trip movies in general, is that there's so many pit stops that don't add anything, and this movie really falls in that pitfall of just being like, isn't it fun that these two characters are just improvising? Isn't this a weird situation you find them in? I'm like, I don't think either of these characters are like they're decently written, but I don't think they're really that fun to see in like these not even that crazy scenarios.
Yeah, they don't even get into that many crazy situations, which now knowing that it is based on it, this might just be like a love letter to his mother. Like,
it feels
and he
like
didn't feel like embellishing it like with any kind of weird scenes, because it's like, yeah, we went to a steakhouse. That was wild.
We went to a strip club. That was weird.
You drank a lot one night, and I was mad at you. That was crazy. It's like, okay.
I'm watching this whole movie going like, treat your mom better. She cares about you.
That's honestly what I took from the movie. I was like, I don't know what kind of movie like this exists, except like I was like, is there another movie out there but like between son and mother? That's
not really.
Like,
it's more like Lady Bird. Like it feels like a bit of Lady Bird. Yeah. But that's more like to like a daughter and a mother, but not like like a son and a mother. You don't usually see this too often, unless
Lady
like it's
Bird
like
is
Psycho.
light years better. Like
so much better, so much better. That understands that like it can be funny, it can be a little absurd, but like that movie works so fucking well because it's also got such a real, true heart and like emotion to it. I don't know, man. This movie really feels like a weird Apatow schmaltz fest. I like the director. Like she's never really done anything like this again. Like I don't know, very very mid film.
Very mid. I think the movie gets a lot of graces for me just because of the situation of like I am like only son, have mom, and that's kind of it sort of thing. So I relate a lot to kind of
I
situations
did wonder about
that are built
that.
up.
I was like, is Ethan gonna like be like, this is actually the story of my mother
this
and
is
my
actually
relationship?
like the most accurate thing? And I'm like, no, not really. Like there's so much like the reason it feels manufactured to me is I'm like, you would never be this mean to your mom. Like, come on. Like,
kind of mean.
He's kind of mean, and also like the mom is just overbearing in ways that don't really make sense. Like she just kind of is just like, oh, now I'm gonna make you guilty, and it just is like, I don't know if these really match. At least in my half, it didn't feel like either character had like a justified reason to be mad at each other, and it was like a misunderstanding. Because one thing that this movie does well, in kind of like my perspective of a son-mother relationship is there's a lot of clear communication about like, we're just gonna be open about things and talk about things, and things get resolved really quickly. And that kind of happens mostly in this movie. Anytime there's like a conflict, it's kind of resolved in the next 10 minutes, if not less.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of talk about it and like, dang, you were mean to me. I didn't like that. Okay, I'm sorry. Here's why.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I understand.
I was going to say, it's interesting that you say that because obviously he's coming from the angle of like, no one knows what it's like to have a Jewish mother. Like she is portraying a very Jewish mother to the point that it is almost stereotypical at times. But also you're like, maybe that's what Jewish mothers are like. And I do think that the director, I looked at her credits and she seems like she may be not Jewish. And I think that might have also played on it because I think there might have been like the script versus the direction, but that's just theory.
I mean, I also, like, I'm not, like, a single, like, child to, like, a mother, but, like, I do have a lot of moments in this that are very relatable to me. She kind of reminded me a lot of, like, elements of my mother, but in, like, a really loving way. Like, my mom listens to this, so this is all positive. A lot of the stuff that, like, Barbra Streisand does in this movie, it's very sweet and very loving, and even when she is kind of overbearing, it's coming from a place of, like, she just cares about her kids so much, and she doesn't want anything bad to happen to her kid. So it's, like, early on in the movie, so the movie opens with her calling her son over and over again, talking, like wishing him good luck on his. Which
I related to hard. My mother calls me multiple times a week, and I always pick up. But my aunt once asked me, she said, why do you always pick up? And I was like, because she's my mother.
Obviously. Yeah. And but he lets it go to message, listens to the message, and then deletes it like an asshole and never calls her back. And I'm like, that's a really shitty thing to do. Like, maybe just like reach out to her. Like, you can do so, you know, you can make an effort. But then later on, like, he does end up going and visiting her and stuff. And somebody's like, I guess this is just their relationship, I suppose. Also, the movie opens with Barbara Streisand in a bed full of bags of M&Ms.
My future, basically. I was like, oh, I would do that.
This is something that she does, is she sleeps eating candy, and this is something that she just really loves, and something that she is like a part of her. This is why she's never remarried, is because she knows that if she ever found another person, like her ex-husband, who's now dead, never liked that she ate with M&Ms in the bed. Now she does it. She loves it. So that literally, she'll wake up, there'll be M&Ms in the bed, and then she'll just go to the phone. First thing she does is call her son to check
every
it on,
day,
basically.
Yeah, she's overbearing. Like, it's multiple times. But also, in her defense, her son is about to go on. He has a new product. He's an organic chemist who has this thing, and he's told her, like, I'm going to pitch for Kmart. So she's excited for him. But yeah.
Every day. I mean, if she does that because of the reason that he has a new product, I think that's fair. But almost like, how is this always the case? Like, even he's just sitting and watching cartoons for like a week straight, and she's calling every day or something. You know, like, I don't know.
I also understand the thing of, like, you know, as a parent, you want to support your kid. You want to make sure that they feel supported. But a lot of times, if you are going through like a really rough time, the last thing you want to hear is someone going like, everything's going to work out, they're going to love you, when it's like, you don't know that. Like, that's not the truth. But, like, at the same time, it is still, like, it's really sweet, like, that she even fucking supports him and cares about him and wants the best for him. It's nice to see that kind of thing, you know? She's not being passive-aggressive and some weird, like, Ari Aster mom or anything. Like, she's just a genuinely lovely...
I am your mother!
Although there is one moment in the movie, very early on, when she's calling him and leaving voice messages. She says,
"My little Donald Trump."
She says about her son.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Ooh. I did hear that and thought, whoa.
2012,
which aged poorly.
Can I tell you though, off script, there are so many TV shows I've been watching recently that are older that have reference to Donald Trump. I watched a Sex and the City episode where Donald Trump was literally in it, and Kim Cattrall's attracted to the man who's talking to Donald Trump because it means he's rich. There's another episode of Golden Girls where they're like, he'll be the next Donald Trump. There's another episode of Golden Girls where they reference Donald Trump. Like, it's like he was in the zeitgeist before he was what he is.
So wild.
That's all. Rant over.
Even in Sex and the City, like, in one of the first episodes, Big is introduced as a Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, he's the next Donald Trump. Yeah.
And then in this is obviously not a show you'd be watching, but I've been rewatching a bunch of a Drew Carey Drew Carey show.
I used to watch that. I like that show with Mimi.
I love the Drew Carey show, and they just recently put it on streaming, so you can watch it really easily, which is really great. And in one episode, Donald Trump is in it, and he's like, they find him like in the middle of traffic, and he's just like, "Hey, I'm gonna go see the new Star Wars movie." He's just like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Like, get the fuck out of here!"
It's the best Donald Trump impersonation I've heard this year. Let me tell you.
Thank you. I'm really good at
get out of my way. I'm double
Hey, get out of my way. Yeah, walk in here. I'm going to Star Wars.
You're fired. But yeah, so the movie opens with that, and it also opens with like the Black Keys of the Black Keys song. I'm like, this is such a product of the time.
It's
like,
so weird that
Donald Trump in a positive way, and also like the Black Keys being in a movie.
2012
like,
doesn't feel that long ago, but then you watch something. This is someone we watched Final Girls. I was like, this is these do actually have expiration dates. Everything does.
Truly does. So he goes to corporate Kmart. Andy's going to corporate Kmart.
Kmart's gone. Speaking of dated.
Because they didn't invest in this product. That's why.
Yeah,
that's right. I understand that this movie needs to include like certain brands because it takes place like in the real world. But Jesus fucking Christ, are there a lot of brand names in this fucking movie?
That's
M&M's.
I could definitely see this man paging this script and being told by people like, "Oh, it's not a good movie. It's not a good movie," and then like the studios being like, "But if you can work in Kmart, M&M's, Home Shopping Network, you know, like this, that. Oh, now we can suddenly make this movie."
Yeah, and it really feels because like, and it's so prominent. Like the M&M thing is super prominent. The Kmart thing is super prominent. And it's funny too because like he does this. He goes to all these places and they all reject him. But I think it's a funny thing where like they can't reject him harshly.
Yeah.
Not just because they are real brands that need to be recognized as like a good brand, you know? So he introduces himself. He says he has a master's degree. He's worked for the EPA, and now he's produced this product called CytoClean. It's funny because it's kind of a clever way of introducing who he is to the audience by introducing himself to the board members.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, what a terrible pitch. Like, I don't give a fuck about who you are. Just tell me what your product is and what it does.
He's an organic chemist, right? Like, that's his thing. He's a chemist person? Is that what he got majored in? Yeah.
He does this. The pitch doesn't go very well. And then he lands in Newark. She embarrasses him. And she's just being ridiculous. She's like,
she's in
hey,
hey, do you see me? He's like, half of Newark, here's your mom.
Exactly. But it's a sweet thing. And then she's like, they're driving home, and she's like, oh, I'm going to introduce you to my friends. I want you to meet my friends. And he's like, I really don't want to do that. I'm really tired. She's like, oh, okay, well, I made a lot of food, so it's all going to go to waste. So she basically sort of like pressures him into talking to her friends.
The first guilt trip.
Which I'm so glad that she did, because one of her friends is the Kathy Najimy.
I know. It's Kathy Najimy. It's if you watch Hacks, it's the maid from Hacks.
Oh yeah.
And then it's who is the other one? Oh God.
It's like three women. All of them
Miriam Margolyes, who was also in Yentl.
She was?
She has a tiny little part in the opening scene with the bookseller. I recognize her because I'll recognize Miriam Margolyes anywhere. But like, so it's full circle. Full circle.
It's full circle. There you go. It's a perfect sandwich. I was just excited. I did recognize her because she has a very like noticeable face. I think she was in like James and the Giant Peach or something. That's I think.
Yeah,
she was a glowworm.
Yes, but I see Kathy Najimy and I get up on my feet. I start fucking applauding. I'm like, hell yeah, this is what I love to see. She plays this woman, Gail, who her husband died recently, and nobody cares. They were just like, good, I'm glad your husband fucking died. Like, now you can go off and do fun things. And she's single.
M&Ms.
Just like...
Barbara tries to set him up. She's like, she's single. And he's like, that must be terrible that your husband died. She goes, no, he was a terrible man, or something like that.
He was a bad guy. And, and so she wants to get Barbara... Are we going to refer to her as Joyce or Barbara, by the way?
I refer to her as God, so you do what you do, and I'll catch up.
Let's
go Joyce. Let's do Joyce.
Okay, cool. So they want Joyce to go with them to a singles night where she can like mingle and get to know people. She drinks 6 bottles of water a day, and she refills them from the tap. And there's this whole moment where it's like she's like, why would I buy a bunch of bottles? And I'm like, I mean, true, girl, like that's really bad for the environment. But then she like refills it from the tap, and Seth Rogen sees this and just goes like, ugh, I hate that you did that. That's so gross. And I get it. Like, obviously that's not great to do.
And you would think as an organic chemist, he knows what's in your pipes and like
what's in the tap.
And natural tap water. So they don't really play it up that way. But now in retrospect, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a chemist. He's probably like, I know what's in sink water, which I still drink to this day, and I'm still alive.
Exactly. We drink tap water, but we have like a filter that can filter out all the shit that's in it. But
no,
like,
I'm playing with death, honey.
He's doing it raw.
What a badass. Absolute badass.
My balls are filled with microplastics, and my lungs are filled with God knows what.
So he goes to bed. This part was actually really sweet. This is where I'm like, oh, this isn't a funny movie, but it's just kind of like a little sweet movie. He goes to bed. And because she wants to stay up and watch old home movies that she sort of digitized. And he's like, I'm too tired. I want to go to bed. And then as he's lying in bed, he hears the home movies coming from her bedroom. So he goes in to tell her to like turn it down, but realizes that she's fallen asleep watching the old footage. And so he like turns the light off for her, turns off the TV for her, takes her glasses off, sort of puts her to bed. It's like a little sweet little moment between the two of them. You know, it's like you didn't need to do this, but already starting off like he doesn't hate her. He's just sort of like embarrassed and annoyed by her sometimes. But there's still like an obvious loving relationship like that the movie's starting off with. They go to a couple nights together. She is not even trying to like wind up with anybody.
Oh yeah, she's like to a man. She's like, "Go away!" Like she literally like tells a guy, like, "Leave me alone.
Stop bothering me." Yeah, and at one point, like all these like older women are like looking at Andy, who by the way is also single. So the both of them are single currently. And he's just like, "Stay away from me."
Why is he there?
I think just to support her.
I did find that weird though, but it's probably like it's her car or something like that.
I will also say this scene means nothing. Like this scene is literally just to imply like she's not trying to like wind up with anybody. And he's like, "Why aren't you even trying? Like why aren't you going out there trying to find somebody else? Like dad, died years ago. Like why aren't you trying to find anybody?" and she says, "I never want to hide my M&Ms again." You know,
love that
that's
part.
something that's I love it.
That does seem like a
there-
very mom excuse, though. Like, I just don't want
It
to have
is.
my M&Ms. But it means
Well,
a lot, though, in
she
some
does.
ways.
She does say, when I was married to your father, she would still eat M&Ms in bed, but she actually had to hide them under her pillow and eat
Yeah.
them while he was asleep. So like she literally is like, I much like Yentl, I went too far and I can't go back.
I had a secret, and I needed to keep it from your father. She
This
says
movie
really
is
great-
Yentl when you look at it.
It kind of is Yentl a little bit, honestly. There's this really great moment. Honestly, this is a genuinely good quote. She says, because she's like, why don't you go out and find somebody? Like, you're telling me to go find somebody. You're alone too. Like, go like find love. And he's like, I mean, you're not finding love. Why should I? And she says this really, really great line. She's like, I've been to the dance and I'm tired. You're skipping out on the dance altogether. And I'm like, that is such a good, like, solid. That's a good mom line. That's something that fucking like moms say is like, you know, like, I've lived my life and I'm happy with it. You are still young. You still have an opportunity to do something with your life. She also mentions that she goes to therapy, although she doesn't really go to therapy. She just meets up with a friend named Anita.
Well, that's Miriam Margoyles is her friend Anita, and so it's
There you go.
they're like, he's like, wait, what?
And she says she feels responsible for his problem with women. And he's like, I don't have a problem with women. What are you talking about? And so she starts to talk. She opens up, and this part was really beautiful too.
I love this scene. I think it's a really sweet scene.
If you want to talk about it, honey, go ahead and just describe it.
Yeah,
for us.
so essentially she talks about how I never told you, Andy, about the origin of your name. And before I met your father, I've only been to one place in this country. I went to Florida, and I met this guy named Andy, and we fell in love. And then I went back to New York or New Jersey or wherever, and I met your father, and I sort of dated them both at the same time for oh yeah, by the way, the guy from Florida was also from New York. And she's
Right.
like, I dated them both. And he's all like, Mom, really? She's like, she said something like, yeah, Mommy had a little trampy phase or something like that. and then she says, you know, I eventually told Andy that I was dating your father, but I wanted to leave him for you know, and he said, don't, be with him.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then, you know, and then Andy's like, wait, is my dad this guy? And she's like, no, it was 2 years after we broke up. But she said, then I got pregnant with you and we had a little boy, and they said, name your kid after something that you love. And I named him after Andy. And it's just a really sweet, like,
she's like crying.
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
like giving a real performance here, and Andy's like, even Rogan's doing a good job because like he is just like, holy shit, like I've never seen this part of my mom before. I had no idea, you know.
Well, it's also wild because I didn't see the scene, so the entire time I'm like, are they going to go see Andy's real dad? Are they going to go?
oh, you thought it was his real father?
Is that what we're doing here? Oh, and then I was like, no? Okay, I think we're
No,
good.
just a guy.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful moment where he's just like he's seeing a new side of his mom, and it means a lot to him that she opened up. And then later that night, he's online looking up who this Andy guy was. His name's Andy Margolis, and apparently he works at this place called J&R Advertising in, where is it, in L.A. or San Francisco? And so he calls up the place to like get a hold, like is he still like working there? Where does he currently live? And they're like, yeah, he still works here. He's on vacation right now. And Andy acts as if he knows this guy and is like, hey, I'm an old friend of his. So him and his wife go on that trip to Europe finally, like trying to get information secretly. And the person's like, he's not married, like, and so he's gaining this information about this guy, like, is like, what is it, the CEO or something, or like the VP?
Yeah, he's like a high up. Yeah.
Some executive.
High up at this advertising executive, and he's like, I want to send my mom. I want my mom to meet this man. But I was also like, and I don't know if the movie's doing this, I was also like, what if he also thinks this is a real shoe-in way to get his product advertised? I'm like, is he doing this
that's a good
just
point.
for
It
his
is an
mom?
advertising company.
I thought
yeah.
it was.
Yeah, is he just doing this for his mom, or is there also like a secret sort of like hidden like thing of like, well, if I introduce the two of them, that might be an easy way to get my product like on shelves possibly.
There's a
good
diabolical version of this movie that we could write. It's not in the
Yes.
script at all. I'm sure
It's
that was
not
never
there,
past
apparently.
anyone's head.
So the next morning, oh, by the way, he uses Bing to find all this out, which is fucking
Hell
hysterical.
yeah. Love
Yeah.
love of being advertised in 2012. Brand new
So
back then.
that's right. So next morning he talks to his mom. He's like, hey, I want you to go on this trip with me. And my last stop was going to be in Vegas, but now it's going to be in San Francisco. And I want you to come with me. But he doesn't tell her the real reason why he's bringing her. And it's so great because at first she's like, what, are you crazy?
She's completely in disbelief, yeah.
And she's like, don't you think I'm going to drive you crazy? And then he's like, well, I mean, if you don't want to go. And she's like, well, you don't want me to go? Am I so awful? And it's just such a good mom thing where she's just like going hysterical about all this stuff.
So,
and then he's like,
so his reason for bringing her is so that just so that she can meet maybe this guy.
Andy.
Yeah, he wants to
So
try and do something
sweet.
for his mother. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, according to Honey, that's the way. But I was for a moment going like, is this an underhanded, like mysterious
I do
thing?
love
But it
that
sounds
angle,
like,
though. That's a really interesting angle.
That was my first, because he works for the advertising. I'm sure that's where the movie's going to go anyway.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, I don't know, who knows?
Maybe.
Anyway, so he's like, I'm going to count to 3, and if on 3 you say no, then we're not going to go. And then on 3 she says yes, and so they get together, and it's very sweet. It's a very sweet moment. The scene was really great. And then they go to pick up the car from Budget. From Budget.
Love Budget.
If you know, big words, big bright words.
Last
totally
time I
didn't
rented a
think of
car,
that.
it was from Budget. And we tell you, and it was a great experience. Our car was clean. It was full of gas. It ran properly. There was nothing missing in it. I love Budget. It's one of my favorite
Budget-
ways to rent and get across the country on the cheap.
Use code the other half 50 for a discount at Budget.
Thank you for that layup, honey. That's a great
Perfect.
send up. Thank you. Appreciate
She-
that. Budget
she
will
uses-
then pay you maybe a little bit too. Maybe.
She uses a coupon in order to get a little bit of
Which
price
I
differential.
love because it is known that. So, talking with you about this movie that I didn't even realize until we spoke a little bit, I think every moment of this movie that's heartfelt and good is from Barbara Streisand. And I could definitely see her because she is notoriously frugal, and and just like the whole coupon thing, I was like, I love it. I live.
It's so good. It's so good too because she keeps pestering her son, like, "Aren't you gonna ask? Aren't you gonna tell it?" And he's embarrassed to mention it. He also wants this like big SUV car, and then eventually it's like really expensive.
And
they
she's
have to
brought
pay
like
for,
5 bags too. He's like, "Wow, mom."
Yeah. And so they end up getting a much smaller car that's a lot less expensive because it also comes with a GPS.
And I totally realized
Called
it
the
is an
Mr. Bean car.
Well, it's so funny because it is an advertisement because he's all like, "Mom, only the large SUVs have GPS and they're good in snow." And the guy's like, "Actually, our smaller cars are good in snow and the GPS is separate so we can put it in a small car." It is literally an advertisement for Budget.
Yeah. Full-on advertisement.
Wow, that's wild.
So they get in the car, and her mom wants to listen to a book on tape about an intersex person, and he is
A book
horribly
intersex.
grossed out.
24 discs.
Horribly grossed out. Yeah. To be fair, like I think he's grossed out because he doesn't want to listen to like people having sex when his mom is in the car.
Oh
but
yeah, he
pretty
gets
heavy
skeeved
book.
out during the second. It is. I mean, I've never read it, but apparently it's incredible.
Is it real?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a real book.
right?
It's a Pulitzer.
Intersex-
I didn't know it was a real
I
book.
think it's a Pulitzer Prize winning book. Like,
Yeah, it's
legit.
hugely famous. Yeah, it's good. I've heard. I've not read it either, but I know it is.
I thought
very
they were.
heavy.
I thought they were just creating like what would be the most embarrassing. thing to
No,
listen to
this is a
with your
real
mom in the car.
life story about an intersex.
That's still like a
person.
movie.
Yeah.
Or, that's one of those things where it's like I don't want to listen to that though with my mom, sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
that's like a
Some of
private-
you aren't queer children who saw Cruel Intentions with their mother in theaters. No, none of you.
No.
Because I did.
No.
I've
And
seen
did you enjoy
male
that?
dick in movies with my mother sitting next to her, being like, "It's
But
the
did you
experience."
enjoy that? Did you
Oh yeah, I
enjoy
love it. My
Was-
mother's so close; she calls me every week, multiple times.
So they're heading towards where she says Seth Rogen's first love was, which is Jessica in Tennessee. I want to
Tennessee,
say.
yeah. She's like, oh, didn't that? Because earlier in the movie, Mike missed out when she's like, oh, I'm the reason. She names 2 girlfriends, one being Jessica, and then the other,
Right.
she says, wasn't that girl Oriental? And then Seth immediately shuts her down. It's like, Mom, don't. And so I at least appreciate that they shut it down.
I will say
a fair
though,
mom
and this
thing,
is this.
though.
I wrote down similarities between the two of them, and I was going to read them later. But this since you brought it up, so she refers to one of his ex-girlfriends as being Oriental, and he's like, that is not an acceptable term, Mom. That's not even close to cool. But earlier on in the movie, when he's listing out all the ingredients in
The soy sauce moment. Yeah.
he says soy sauce, and he says it with a very like racist, like over the top way. And I'm like, why would you do that in a meeting of like people that you're trying to impress? I don't know.
Yeah,
But it's obviously of the
my
time.
boyfriend said the exact same thing. He said, what? And I was like, yeah, we're only
Yeah.
a minute into the movie. Let's go.
But it's a great moment where like he does that, and then later on,
True.
he, like,
It's a family trait kind of thing.
it's a
Yeah.
family trait. I wrote down other things. They're both single, obviously. He's disgusted of. Oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention. So early on, I forgot to mention this. I wrote a note, but I didn't understand what the note was. So early on, he gets a jacket from J. Crew that's really expensive, and he's wearing it.
Use our coupon code TheOtherHalfPodcast at jcrew.com to save yourself 30% off all the jackets and shorts you need. I am currently wearing the shorts right now. Let me tell you, the 5-inch inseams are probably the perfect fit for this summer. I don't know why people think our ad reads are natural. I don't know.
It just works perfectly.
Yeah.
You just watch movies with the products that you're trying to sell. It's easy. So he mentions that, so he has the J. Crew jacket, but he still has the price tag on it because what he wants to do is wear it to. Right, he wants to wear it to all of the pitches and then return it later, so he doesn't have to actually pay the money for it because it's expensive and he's low on funds. But when she sees the jacket, she's like, "Oh, you still have the tag on here," and rips the tag off, so he can't return it.
Yeah, and he's
later
visibly annoyed by that. Yeah,
he's visibly annoyed by it. And then later on, she says, "Hey, I bought you some underwear from the Gap. If you don't like it, you can return it." And he's just like, "Mom, I'm not going to return clothes. That's gross."
Oh yeah, because she says you can try them on first if you want to return them. He goes, "Mom, that's not right." But yet again another
family trait that's like similar between the two of them, but obviously one is like a bit more absurd than the other. And another brand thing, she's obsessed with the Gap. She brings it up all the time.
She does talk about the Gap even in my house.
She loves the Gap. And you know what?
But we here also love the Gap as well with the 20% off gift card or code. Excuse me, we have to we'll cut that out. We'll cut that part out.
You just made me realize
back.
I'm going to submit this to the Criterion Collection because there are deep threads in this movie that I didn't even notice, Mike.
Yeah, the one other similarity I picked up on was early on she calls him from Newark in the middle of in the morning at an odd time and like bothers them, and then later on he calls California from Newark when he wants to get to know more about Andy. So there's a lot of similarities, like subtle similarities between the two of them. It's very interesting.
Okay, sorry to derail.
Anyway. Yeah. No worries. I wanted to go over that anyway eventually. So anyway, they're in the car and he's like, "Hey, so what'd you like so much about this Andy guy? Like, what attracted you to him?" And again, another really beautiful moment. She's like, "When I was young, I didn't think I was beautiful. I was cross-eyed. I was awkward. And Andy was the first person to ever call me beautiful, and it really meant a lot to me." And it's like a really sweet moment of like, you know, you're seeing your mom like go back to when she's young and like talk about like moments that meant a lot to her and the first time she felt like she was beautiful.
And
kind of
Barbara Streisand was sort of cross-eyed when she was younger. So once again, I assume that there's a lot of impersonators will mock her by doing like when she hits a long note, like crossing their eyes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Because neither of you are gay men.
I mean,
who watch
obviously,
numerous
right,
impersonation clips. But it is, and so like once again, I'm convinced she added that part.
I believe it, and it clearly comes from a very like emotional place for her. So they arrive at the first pitch meeting, and up until now, I'm like, she kind of reminds me of my mom. You know, there's moments that like are like her, and then she pulls her purse out, and she has the little purse clip where you can like clip it onto the side of the table, and it holds the purse so it doesn't touch the ground. My mom has one of these things.
Love that.
And I was like, holy fucking shit. And she even talks about it the same way. She's like, it's a little doodad. It's a gadget I found on Amazon. And like, I remember we went out to lunch once with, it was my parents and my wife. And my wife was like, oh, what is that thing? And my mom was like, oh, it's a little purse clip. I can get you one. And she got one like the very next time they hung out for my wife. My wife like uses it consistently.
That's so funny because I thought that was a made up thing.
This is a very real thing that moms love.
I just love her reasoning. Why would I put my purse on the ground?
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it's fair. A lot of places don't have the hooks underneath the bars or the tables or anything, so you don't want to put stuff on the ground. It's dirty.
You get this every time. So she's playing a game on her phone. It's very annoying to him. It's annoying to me, honestly.
It was like Candy Crush, really loud.
Music down
at the max volume.
And he tells her to stay out of the pitch meeting, which is kind of like obvious, but she's like kind of like, why am I not going in the meeting? I want to help you out. But it's like, who the fuck are you? Like, you're not part of the business.
She tries to doesn't she try to like smudge his hair? She's like,
yeah, she tries to like fix his hair. And
it's like, what are you, my presentation partner? Have you memorized your notes yet? You know what you tell me about? What is my fucking OxyClean ripoff? Don't call OxyClean or whatever. You know, like.
But I will say, like later on, there is like she is a natural salesman. She obviously is good with talking to people. She knows how to like sell a certain thing, schmooze. So I'm like, I mean, honestly, like you should probably like bring her in there. But but you know,
happens, Mike.
I'm sure it does. But at this moment, he's very protective of it. He goes in, bombs immediately. Like, but he doesn't tell her. He always says, like, I think that went well. I have a good feeling about this because he doesn't want to come to her.
Yeah,
with
that
embarrassment.
part is so funny to me because I try to be honest with my mother, and so I'm like, I get it. I get why you would lie, but I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you're setting yourself up for destruction. Like, your mother thinks you have like 20 irons in the fire, and you have none.
You have nothing. Yeah, it's not working well for you at all. So now there's a montage of them driving around, listening to music, listening to the story, and also him getting rejected. And they're like, why? They're like driving. And there's this one moment. Again, this reminds me so much of my mom. Is they're like driving, and they see like a hitchhiker on the side of the road. And they don't say anything. They just see the hitchhiker, and then we see like Barbara Streisand, and her eyes like roll, and she looks over at Andy, and she says like something in the effect of like, "Never, ever pick up one of those hitchhikers," which is such a mom thing because like I didn't say I would. Like you are presupposing that I would pick up a hitchhiker.
Andy,
Yeah.
promise me you'll never pick up a hitchhiker, okay?
Promise I will never pick up a hitchhiker.
Good. They rape.
I guffawed. I know. It's so wrong, but like she sells it in a way, and it might have payoff later.
I'm sure it will.
So I
It's
will
just
say,
so-
I would just say at the very end, mild spoilers to the very end. There was a part where they do the bloopers, right? And they do all the improv bloopers and stuff, and they're talking about. Suddenly, they just start talking. It's just fun conversations, like long conversations with Seth Rogen and Barbara Streisand driving in a car, and they're just saying some weird stuff. And then she just starts springing up. They rape everyone. They rape everyone all the time.
Oh my
And
god!
they could rape you and me. And I'm just like, what the fuck? What are they talking about? What the fuck is this? And you know what? In context, makes less sense still. Doesn't make much sense.
I didn't watch the bloopers. Oh my god! I'm going back and watching.
We
that.
watched the
should.
director's cut of this movie like Yentl.
Yeah, exactly. She went back and added 45 more minutes of movie.
Yeah. it's like obviously it's like off color and like offensive, but it's just it's a real like mom thing of like they don't want anything bad to happen to you, and so they just say like the most horrifying thing
Yeah.
they can imagine, like never pick up a hitchhiker because they'll do something
racist.
terrible.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like,
So later that night, oh god, this part was so fucking stupid. This is the kind of comedy I fucking hate. Is like they arrive at the hotel. I didn't even write it, but I remember it because I hated it so much. They arrive at the hotel, and the guy behind the counter is like, he's like, "Oh, you and the lady, you want a
yeah,
room together?"
What the
And
fuck?
he's just like. And he's just like, "That's my mom, you weirdo." And he's just like winking, and he's like, "Stop winking." And then the guy's like, "Well, do you want one room?" And he's like, "No, I want 2 rooms. I don't have sex with moms, and I don't have sex with my mom." And this scene just goes
Yeah, he's
on
like,
and
I don't
on.
want you to assume that I would sleep in the
Yeah.
same bed with my. It was weird.
It
that
was
whole thing's
fucking
weird.
It's so stupid. And the thing that pisses me off the most is he says like, "I want 2 rooms." Hard cut. They're in the same room with 2 beds. So like, I don't like,
I can
this
tell
thing-
you for a fact, Mike, that day Barbara wasn't on set, because if she was on set, I think she would have been like, "No, we need
Yes.
to remove this whole scene because it's all just the 2 of them."
It's pointless. It's fucking pointless. I hated it. It wasn't funny. And so they get in. They're in the room. He's practicing his pitch in front of a mirror, and his mom starts giving notes. She's like, "I would recommend like testing, like showing them the product is safe. A little bit of like theatrics, like maybe drink the product, or like show off that it's safe to like consume." Because he's using all of these like really like technical words, and she's like, "That's going over everyone's head. You got to make it simple. You got to make
It's
it
the
theatrical."
worst critique you can get. If I can't understand it, how
Yeah.
can everyone else understand it?
Exactly.
But it's also a very
And-
good critique, though. Also, right? Like, it
Oh, I
sucks
mean,
to
just
hear,
one
but
you never want to hear. Yeah.
you never want
It's
to.
one you never want to hear. And the other critique you never want to hear, particularly if he's this far into like selling the product, is she also recommends changing the name. She's like, the name is too confusing. It's easy to misread. I would recommend changing the name.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce the name.
And I can neither. And he's like, he kind of is like, "Oh yeah, maybe I'll consider it, but I already like bought all of the product like labels and stuff, so it's gonna be
Yeah,
kind
he
of
says
an
he has
issue."
10,000 units of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot.
But it's honestly it's good, helpful like stuff. But then later on, you also sort of realize like we learn a bit more about who Andy is, and he's sort of a very sort of easily emotional, like very protective person who just wants things exactly the way he wants them, and he doesn't really want to
that's
change
true.
them.
I want
We
to
get
ask
learn
you,
a bit
how
more about
many
that.
units of Other Half merch do you have?
Oh, so much.
So
you know,
much.
I mean, Yeah, that's why we.
Well, I think you should change the name.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I think other people need to fucking change the name because there's so many fucking other half podcasts out there that are terrible.
Is it a sore wound? Did I scab something?
Oh, you did. Because
I am the Barbara Streisand of this podcast.
Because when we fucking started the podcast, we made sure there was not another podcast with this name, and
We're
then all of a
courteous.
sudden. We were, and then all of a sudden, all these fucking other podcasts steal our fucking name. They don't even, and they don't even post anymore, and yet they're still like on top of the fucking like boards. Don't even get
Sorry,
started.
I didn't.
messed up.
When I was like, this is such a good joke in my head, and then I realized, oh shit, there's some truth to it.
No, it's fine.
No, we
it's
don't
fine,
have any
it's
merch,
okay.
so it's fine. We're okay. We're okay.
It's all
Maybe
good,
we
it's all
will.
good.
Maybe.
Maybe we will,
Maybe
guys.
we will.
Check out the other half .com Shopify.
There we go. Who knows?
So they're on the road again. It starts snowing, and they start having car trouble. Something's wrong with one of the tires. They think it's flat, but when they pull over, it doesn't appear to be flat. So they don't know what's going on. And so they're like, why don't we, Barbara Streisand's like, oh, let's go into this restaurant over here. Look, it says they say it's tapas. And Seth Rogen's like, Mom, that doesn't say tapas. And they go in, and it's a strip club. It's a topless.
Even though no
which is
one's
a
topless.
Solid joke. No, nobody is topless because this is like a PG-13 movie. Like, can't actually show boobs in this movie. But it is a stripper club. And one of the strippers is like, hey, I can go take a look at your car. I'm a mechanic. And they go out. And
I
take
just
a look
have
at
to
the car.
interject because
Oh, go ahead,
I
go
would
ahead.
be remiss. The woman who is like the manager / bartender.
Oh, yeah, I recognized her.
Her name is Dale Dickey. I love her because in this movie particular, this woman is like a working actress. She's been in things.
Yes.
You've seen her. She has the most weathered face ever,
Yeah.
which I love.
I think she's in Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
actually.
she's
I'm
Breaking
sure.
Bad.
Yeah, she has the most weathered face ever. But in this scene, her body is like slamming, and I was like, Dale fucking Dickey, you
Yeah.
are a well-worn faced actress, but you are a beautiful woman.
You're keeping it together. Yeah, and it's funny too because like she's really
She was
nice,
also in the
and then-
Fallout TV show as well.
Yeah, that's right. She's the one that works behind the counter. That's right.
Yeah, the one that gives them the
yeah.
fake leg and all that.
The minute you see her, you know you've seen her in a million other things.
She's in a lot, yeah.
She's really good, and yeah, she's good in this. And then the other actor who plays the other stripper is really good. She's the one that comes out and resolves the problem. Apparently, it's a bunch of like frozen ice near the tire that just needs to be broken. So she just takes off her heel and breaks the ice with it,
Nice.
which is a really great moment. And then she goes over to Andy and she's like, "Hey, would you like a private dance?" And Andy's like, "Oh no, I don't think so. My mom's here. Maybe next time I'll take you up on it." And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "I don't know, Andy. Fucking, I think she's coming on to you. Like, go ahead and like, she seems really nice and good around the."
But it
good
also
around the car.
reinforces Barbara Streisand and all the thing of like, I am the reason you have issues with women because I'm literally right
Yeah.
here, right now.
Exactly. And so then they're like, well, there's not really going to be any hotels in the area. Driving's going to be kind of dangerous. Well, there is somebody we know that we might be able to call up. So they call up Jessica, who is pregnant. I don't recognize the actor playing Jessica, but I do recognize her husband, played by Colin Hanks. And the two of them pick
the
up
good Colin's son.
the good Colin son.
Oh, that's Jessica's played by the lady who's in Chuck and in Mass Effect 2, Yvonne Strahovski. I remember her.
Yeah, so they pick him up. Jessica's pregnant, married to Colin Hanks. Apparently, this is like their fourth or fifth baby. And they seem very happy. And they go to their house to like stay the night there. They've opened up their house to them because they know them. And Andy's mom, this part was honestly kind of like ridiculous, but I feel like my mom would do something like this too, where Andy's mom's like, "So Jessica, do you think that you breaking up with my son affected him in the long run?" And I'm like, what a question to ask. But then Jessica's like, well, actually, it's Andy that broke up with me. And yeah, and Barbara Streisand was unaware of this. And so she says, oh, I didn't know this. And apparently what happened was he proposed to her. I think they were going to college. It was the thing.
Yeah,
They
it
were
was graduation or whatever.
They were graduating from high school, going to college, I think. And he proposed to her, and she said no, not because she didn't want to, but because they were just really young. And she was like, I think we should probably.
Well, no,
he
didn't he break up with her?
No, that's what I've been saying. Is he proposed? She said no, but she was like, we can maybe in the future, but we're a little young right now. And he was so upset by the fact that she didn't want to get married right then and there.
I remember
That's why
I was
he
looking at
broke
my
up with
phone
her.
during the scene because Barbara Streisand wasn't there, and I just
That's
missed it all.
totally fair. It's totally fair. And clearly he regrets it because he like looks at this beautiful house and he sees they're a beautiful family and he's like, if only I just. And this is what I mean about he needs things to be absolutely perfect. It's the thing of like, you know, he wanted to marry her, she said no, he blows it up, and it's like he wants the label to be exactly the same right way that he wants it, and if it's not right, then he'll freak out, which comes into play. Because after this, he's, of course, very upset, and he's just like, I wish you would just mind your own business, Mom. And then they go have a meeting at Costco. They're going to Costco.
Oh,
They're going to meet at Costco.
Let's go. I'm so glad you have a
I
membership
always
there.
buy in bulk.
Always.
Bulky life, happy life is what I say.
So, readers or listeners, you may be expecting me to plug Costco right now, but actually we are not contacted with them because they have to keep their prices low, so low to keep their $1.50 hot dogs in play that they did not go
That's
as a
right.
discount code. So you know what? Burn the place down. That's all I'm saying.
Fuck them.
I, however, have given my soul to Costco. And
Costco's a great company, I think. So they go have a meeting with Costco, and she tries to help. She's like, it's not a meeting where they're going to go into another room. They're actually, the guy's going to come out and meet them there at the table where they're currently sitting.
And she breaks this news to Seth, who's like ready for his meeting. And she's like, honey, I don't think they're meeting anyone.
Right. I think they're going to come out and meet us. And so they do. They come out and meet with them. And so she has to be there, basically. And so she acts as if she's part of it. And she mentions the purse clip, and the guy's very interested in that. And then as they start talking more about the product, he starts coming up with like criticisms that match what she was saying earlier. Like, you need to change the name.
Yeah, he
you
literally
need to change
says the same thing.
packaging.
Because in the hotel room, she goes, all I see is Psycho Clean. And the first thing he says is, I see Psycho Clean.
Exactly. And so all this starts piling up, and Andy doesn't like any of it. And eventually he blows up. He's like, I'm not changing the goddamn name. That's not happening. So he completely destroys the opportunity that he might have had with Costco at this point. And then they go to the hotel. Andy's been drinking his sorrows away, and she leaves a little water bottle for him because she read that you need to stay hydrated.
You should be drinking one glass with every drink.
Yes, exactly. That's what she read. And so that's your half, buddy.
That is my half, isn't it? So she goes and leaves and comes back to him because he's drunk. Says like, you should hydrate. I don't want to say it again. You leave the water bottle here. And he says, can you not see that I don't want to talk right now? Enough with the nagging and the water. Enough with it. And she says, I don't know what to say. Finally, you say something like this to me. You finally say it. And he says, I can't do anything right by you, Andy. I can't do it. You think I'm stupid? You think you went to school in California? I think you went to school to California so you wouldn't see me. So you don't like me and you don't want to spend time with me. And as long as you're with me, but I don't care. As long as you're with me, you got to treat me with respect, okay? And then she leaves.
This is so confusing.
I think it was pretty
Ethan,
accurate.
I need to stop you here. When are you going to start describing the movie and not a real life conversation with your mother?
I don't know.
Because I don't know what you're talking about here. The movie. No,
30% off that J. Crew. You guys could get amazing pairs of nice button-up shirts there. Your Oxfords, you can get them up there. It'd be great. 30% off. You can go right there. Let's ignore this part of the movie. Let's skip a little bit ahead.
No, essentially, Mike, they just have a be fight, and
Right.
Yeah.
And she's giving it her all. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
she's actually Ethan
she's
is
really
portraying. She's really good.
Oh, are you saying I'm not like Barbara Streisand and can really fill the role?
Ethan was
fill the
reading
big
as if
shoes?
it is terrible writing, but like that. It was a moment in the movie where like I looked at my boyfriend and we were like, "Is this a good movie?" Like,
When I started watching, I was like, "Oh wow, this movie has like a lot of stuff going on. Like, there's clearly emotions being said, and I believed all the emotions that were being said, and she runs off.
Even Rogan's doing a pretty good job here, I think.
Yeah, he's not doing bad. And she's like, I'm gonna leave. So she leaves. He sits for a bit, watching the old CRT TV in the hotel, and then was like, I should find my mom. And she sees her, and she's down at the local motel bar, hanging out, drinking, and making friends, having a good time.
and Barbara Streisand does not drink in real life.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
She doesn't. She in her biography, she reminds you several times how she never has done any drug in her life.
Wow. And she like drinks in Yentl. She drinks in this. She's an actor.
She actually was pretty good as a drunk. like lady,
Yeah.
tipsy lady.
I think at this too. Yeah, I honestly would have never believed it. But
Wow.
you know, she's there. She's drunk. She's talking to everyone, and she's like, "Oh, you know, here's my boy. You know, he sometimes comes home for Thanksgiving and blah blah blah," and says all this stuff. And he's like, "I think we should go home, Mom. You're getting a little drunk." He's like, "No, Jimmy." Jimmy's this other guy she met at the bar. "Jimmy, give me another drink." And Seth Rogen's like, "I'm not gonna let Jimmy give you another drink." And Jimmy's like, "I'm gonna give your
Ooh.
mom another drink because that's what she wants." And he's like, "No, I'm not gonna let you do it." And then he punches Jimmy, and then Jimmy
Holy fuck!
punches him, or I think he slaps Jimmy. I think Jimmy just punches him back in the face. So the next scene is him driving off, and he says, "Well, that was a weird night," and he has a big black mark on his cheek. And he, you know,
But he's got to go to all these things. He's got to pitch the product.
Makeup is a thing. It's fine. We're good. So, yeah, he
I
mentions
do have to say though, Ethan, though, in that moment he has a huge black eye thing, and the next scene it's almost completely gone.
It is
Like,
gone
is
really
yeah.
quickly. You're right. They kind of are like, whatever. Yeah, they refer to it in other scenes, but it's not there anymore. So he's,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
instead of organic chemistry, he probably has some miracle serum. He maybe
Yeah.
rubs
Oh,
the
yeah,
product
you're
Rub
on,
some
his,
right.
on his
coconut oil.
Yeah,
Coconut
puts
oil,
on
the
there.
soy.
Yeah, so then he says, "That was a weird night." And he says, "Look, I went to UCLA because they had the best organic chemistry program in the country. That's the only reason." She's like, "All right, I guess I believe you." He says, "I'm sorry, you know, I'm saying all this stuff, but like, to be honest, Mom, I haven't made one sale at all. I have this product that I believe in is good and no one will buy it." And she says, "You know what? I could give you advice, but I'm not going to because you're a grown man. You could do what you want." And then he says, "When did you call Anita?" She says, "Oh, not too long ago." So obviously that was advice from Anita. I know who
Right.
it was.
Who
so I
is
was
her?
I was gonna
Her
say.
Who is Anita?
non-licensed therapist.
Like,
Yeah.
as her non-licensed therapist. It's like, okay, well, that's very nice. You didn't have to, you know, give me this extra advice. So she says, "We still have 3 places to try and sell this." So, but on the way though, we have to do this whole long scene. We got to go to the diner. This big diner. This is in Texas. Big country diner. Oh my God, this felt like it lasted forever.
I do need to tell you though, I do need to admit, she is living out a life dream of mine. I love steak so much. I would go through this.
You would go through this?
I
Well,
would go through it. It's honestly my dream to end up at a place that has an 50-ounce steak, and I'm like, oh, I can't possibly. And then I do it, and I eat it in such a quick manner that people are frightened because I love steak so much. Go on.
Anyway, so before this,
I want to go to this place now. This sounds awesome.
This is basically a place where they're ordering food, and she says, "What's this weird little thing on the menu?" And it's just like, "Oh, well, okay, so it's this thing where you have to eat 4 pounds of meat, a 4-pound like steak, potatoes, a roast potato on the side, like a shrimp cocktail, a salad.
My dream.
Eat this whole thing. And if you don't,
I haven't eaten yet. I haven't eaten dinner, so this sounds. My mouth is watering.
I'm so sorry, but it's $100. It's $100 to this, or if you eat it all in an hour, it's free. And the justification for this is so weird because it's like,
yeah, it's so weird.
"Oh, honey, I have to do this." He's like, "Mom, you don't have to do that." It's like, "No, you don't have any money. You said you're poor a little while ago. This will save you money if I eat all of this." And I'm like, "What?
No, it won't.
What are you talking about?" It's like,
They'll
"No,
get
it'll be
a free dinner.
dinner."
Is what? Yeah,
So I
just
guess
for
you'd
a
be,
free dinner.
but it's like you'd probably be spending like what, $25 instead. It's like, no, I want to save you those $25, eating $100 worth of food in under
But it
an
has
hour.
been established that she is frugal.
She's frugal. That's true.
She
so
is
she sees a
frugal,
deal. She likes to
but
do what she
it's-
sees it.
It's a
It's
very
the-
strange
well, that's,
deal.
Ethan, you're 100% right because it doesn't go anywhere you think it's not going to go. But also, it's exactly what I was saying. This is probably the true story of his mother. Like this part is probably like, my mother ate a 4-pound steak, but it's not that exciting.
In order to save money.
Also, you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier that Barbara Streisand loves food. So, I mean, I think she was just also...
She might have been like, this scene's already terrible. Give me a 4-pound steak.
yeah.
And she went on to literally eat the entire thing.
I
over
was
the
also
course of the
looking, I'm
day.
like, 4-pound steak, that's quite a lot, but like, I don't know. It's like not super unreasonable, you know? I feel like when I see like Man vs. Food, it's always like the worst thing in the world, and I see it and I'm like, this is like a big mid dinner, but you could probably put it away in an hour. I bet.
I think it's I think it's the time. I think the time like sink of like eating all the steak and then eating like you can't enjoy it. You have to just fucking like swallow it all. Yeah.
It's
but also
it's
the thing that would throw me off is the other things: the baked potato, the shrimp cocktail, the salad.
Shrimp cocktail.
Yeah, like that would throw me.
Well,
Yeah.
she says, I'll order that, but I'll have the salad on the side. It's a Weight Watchers thing. So
That's funny.
she
That's
then
funny.
goes and sits down in front of everyone, and they make a whole to-do about this. They have a timer. They're like, all right, everyone, it's Joyce here. We're going to see if she can eat this steak in under an hour. Let's do it, ding. And it's just like, do you want to hang out and like watch while you're eating on one person put away a disgusting amount of food? Like, it's just such a weird thing for a restaurant to be like, all right.
It's my dream.
It's your dream. Oh, I'm sorry to stop your dream.
What a beautiful dream it is.
This is what your
Shit on it,
should now
Ethan.
be.
That's fine.
You should do this.
The
on Twitch
impossible
stream. There you
dream.
go. But then, while she's eating, her son's watching. This guy kind of stands in the way, and he's like, "Hey, can you excuse me, man?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." By the way, I'm Ben Graw. I just love watching. What's more American than watching people get on stage for an hour and make them eat themselves sick? And he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, well, that's my mom." It's like, "Oh, that's cool. I don't even like live here. I have work down in like Tulsa, so I'm just driving by, but I always come here because I just love watching people eat all this food. Do you think I could give your mom some tips on eating all of this and putting this away?" And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? This is so weird. This had to be something that actually really happened because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
such
I
a
hate this. I hate this scene. This scene is awful. It just keeps going.
It keeps going, and so there's a whole scene of him going up there and be like, "Oh, your son told me I could help you eat, and you know what you got to do is you got to take a bite from the salad, you got to take a bite from the potato, and then you have to take 2 bites of the steak, and you rotate it. You have to have a small steak bites, and all this stuff, all these details of like, oh, okay, I get
Because
it.
this is probably the true part of the story. Because exactly.
Probably.
Yeah.
And it's boring.
It's very
Very.
boring. And we finally are at the last minute, and she's like, I don't know if I can do it. And he's like, Mom, you can't do it anymore. I'm like, there's like a couple bites of steak left. He's like, Mom, I'm not going to make you do it. There's 5 minutes left. You can't do it. And Ben Graw's like, no, she could do it. She could do it. And they keep like doing this whole thing. And it's like, finally she does it. It's great. She gets her free food, I guess. They leave, and Ben Graw's like, "Hello, I like you a lot. You want to like sometimes do business in New York? We could meet up there." And she's like, "Oh, I don't know if I could date someone." He's like, "Well, let me tell you. When I saw someone who could put away as much food as you, I was instantly like on board. I was attracted. I was, I think I had to get you a number and had to hit you up." So she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, dating is weird. I don't know if I want to see someone eat and date." And he's like, I feel like that's how most people do it. And then she's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, listen, I'll give you my number. If you change your mind, you know where to call me. And then she walked back to her son. He's very like making fun of her, like, hey, this guy is very handsome, Ben Graw. And she clearly likes him. She's clearly into him, and maybe later on she'll feel like it. But like now that I know the whole thing about being shamed about having M&Ms and like eating them in bed, I bet.
This guy's got a feeding fetish.
This guy might.
He's a
He might.
feeder.
He might.
Yeah.
She's into it. She's like,
Yeah.
I like to be
oh
what you
yeah, this movie needs to be in the Criterion.
There's levels. Even this awful, useless scene that lasted way too long had something to it.
I never thought of that, Ethan. But yeah,
They could have cut down like all the eating scenes, just had them up here at the end and be like, I like ladies who can eat. And be like, okay, cool. That'll be it. But yeah, so another driving montage. She keeps wanting to stop to eat, and Mom goes on shenanigans. She gets on the wrong car because it looks similar. She's driving. Suddenly a hitchhiker is in the back. It's like, I picked up a
she's so
hitchhiker.
proud. She's like, I picked
She's
up.
so
Oh, no.
proud.
While they're listening
And
to
then-
Middlesex.
And then immediately gone. Hitchhiker's not in the next scene. Like, never see the
Oh.
hitchhiker again, except in the bloopers. And then she asks, like, what's a hot flash feel like? And so a bunch of shenanigans. So they actually, by the way, Ben Graw was like, you gotta make time to go to the Grand Canyon. They go to the Grand Canyon.
Right.
And,
And
they're
she's
like,
always wanted to go to the Grand
Yeah,
Canyon.
she's always wanted to go. She says that
They-
earlier.
So he does make time to go to the Grand Canyon. But they kept saying he was on a tight schedule, but I guess not. Goes to the Grand Canyon, looks at it for about 5 minutes. They're like, okay, cool. We don't have to. How long do we have to stare at it? 10 minutes? Okay, it's fine. We got it. And they just left.
No.
Because otherwise it's disrespectful if you look at it less than 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm
he
like,
says
"Oh,
we'll
no,
lie about how long we looked.
We'll lie about how long it is. Anyway, now they're in Vegas. They're pointing out the M&M store. They're pointing out Caesar's Palace. They're pointing out all these other
They're
places.
staying at Caesar's Palace.
They're
They
staying
like
at
that. They
Caesar's
name
Palace.
it.
It's very much important. In fact, they check in and he's like, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed. She's like, I want to play slots. This one has a frog on it. I love frogs. And it's on the edge of the aisle, which means it's a winner. It's a real winner. He's like, I don't know
Mike
about
left
that.
off that she has an obsession with frogs, I think.
Oh, really?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's right. She's obsessed with her. Like, it's that
He's
thing
like,
where like a
yeah.
kitchen is full of like a certain kind
It's
of
like,
animal
Mom, how many
thing.
frogs do you own?
Moms choose like an animal that they're like obsessed with, and they cover the kitchen in it. Yeah, it's like it's a mom stereotype. So she's like, I'll gamble here. It's like, do you get free drinks? And she's just on and on about gambling. He goes upstairs. She comes in the morning when it's like 7 in, sneaks in. And she's like, well, you know what's different about me? It's like, no. He's like, I just woke up. I got $60. I won $60 up. I stopped and I got my ears pierced. I'm so happy. I want to stay here the whole weekend. Why not? You know what?
Wow.
Why don't I stay here and you go up to San Francisco by yourself and you have that
Which,
meeting?
Mike, this is where the movie goes into the darkest territory ever of Joyce's gambling addiction. For
What?
the next 45 minutes. It's so dark.
I felt guilty. I felt
just
guilty
kidding.
for how this was. And she kept saying it was the frogs. It was the frogs kept telling her. And anything with a frog, she just can't not gamble with. It was dark. It was dark.
Wow.
But actually-
she's gonna croak.
She's going to croak, yeah. But what actually happens instead is Seth Rogen admits there's no meeting in San Francisco, actually. The meeting was actually I was going to find Andy Margolis. And I'm like, who the fuck is Andy Margolis? He's meeting in San Francisco. And I'm like,
Yes,
is Andy
I love
Margolis
this.
like a guy that like is gonna fund your thing? Like, is he gonna help with the meeting? And he keeps mentioning like he got transferred to the West Coast. He's not married, so I figured why not? And I'm like, does that mean he wants to marry Andy Margolis? So you can have two Andys together? What is happening?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. And then she says, right after you told me he existed, I tracked him down. And then I'm like, okay. She says, and then she starts getting upset. She says, that's why you wanted me to come this whole time? I actually thought you wanted to spend time with me, but you just wanted to use me to meet Andy. And I'm like, what the fuck is Andy gonna like solve everything? Like in my mind, I thought he heard a pitch that like Andy was like a huge entrepreneur, you know, a Donald Trump
mogul
type, we would say. That maybe would kickstart his business, and he's just using her as a way to get to him. And I was like, okay, that's a weird choice, but all right. So she leaves. She's upset, and he has to go have his meeting because he's got a meeting with Home Shopping Network. Actually, out of all things, he's got 5 minutes to go on the air and explain his product and demonstrate it. And he's on there, and he's doing it. And he gets up there and he says, I'm the creator of an amazing new cleaning product. This is by the way, the first time I've heard of this product. I had no idea what it was beforehand.
This is awesome.
So I'm getting pitched on this. He says it uses 3 completely
and
renewable
Mike, just
materials.
so you know, they're recording. They throw him like it's a real Home Shopping Network thing. So like he is thrown out of his element. He thought it was going to be a meeting.
Oh no!
It's a live.
So he's going to be on
presentation
TV.
He's with a host, like a host.
Yeah, with a
is
host.
him.
And so,
Basically-
just to reinforce your theory, like he is completely out of his element.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely. So you know he's doing his whole pitch, and everyone's kind of getting bored. They're just like, oh yeah, okay, yep, it's another cleaning product. It's really good. And he's talking about the pH levels and stuff, and
Yeah, nobody cares about that.
At this point, his mom walks in. I'm like, who let her in here? Like on set. This is a hot set, and she's just like walking in, and he sees her, and he kind of like thinks for a second. He's like, listen, this is boring. I've lost all of you already. Everyone's checking their phones. The host is checked out.
He's talking to the crew as well, the
Well, he's talking
audience
to
of the
the-
people watching this movie.
Yeah, exactly. He says, listen, here's what I'll tell you. This is usually what you buy, right? You buy this. It's this random blue, yellow colored product, and it's poisonous. It'll kill you. It's the worst thing ever. It's super awful. I'll tell you that. Mine doesn't do that. I'll just do this. They're like, okay, they're kind of interested. He just pours it into a glass and then drinks it. And he says, listen, so many companies tell you that their product is the best product ever invented. I want them to all to come on live on the air.
And then he starts puking up blood.
And
No, I'm just
drink
kidding.
it. No.
No!
That would have been nuts.
That's the end of the movie.
Amazing. It's
drink
just like he
this.
dies.
Exactly. So then he says, any products that make the same could do it on camera, do it. And the guy's like, wow, that was actually a really good pitch. We'll contact you later, and it went great. And his mom was
Wow.
super excited, and they had that cool, and they left the room, and they're like, wow, it was amazing. How did it taste? He's like, it tasted horrible, but I did it, which I thought was very cute.
That's sweet.
And she's like, all right, you know what? Let's go to San Francisco. Why not? We'll go there. And I'm like, oh, cool. All resolved. Just like the whole, like, I was drunk and said mean things. All resolved in, like,
All
5
taken care
minutes.
of.
All fine. All good to go. And so I still don't know who Andy is. So they keep saying, why don't you meet Andy? And so how are we, they're in San Francisco. He's like, how are we going to meet him? He's like, well, I got his number. You call him. And you say, like, we'll go to lunch or something. And so she calls, and he answers. And she gets super scared and doesn't do anything. She's like, you know what I need to do? I need to meet him in person. We need to go to his house. You have his house address, right? And he's like, yeah, I do. We'll go meet them there. So
I
then
didn't realize he had his house address. Interesting.
that
Okay.
that was easy to get back in the day. You could just easily get
I
that.
guess so.
And then things started happening. It was mostly the internet.
People got swatted.
People got
Bing
swatted a lot.
has accessibility, Bing.
Yeah, I guess you're
real.
right. That's a good advertisement for Bing. By the way, go on Bing right now. Go to the Bing shopping, and you can get a good 20% discount on all of your Bing ads that you want to run. Very, very good product. You can get all the addresses you need. So they go to his house, and they knock on the door, and some guy answers. The guy is Adam Scott. Adam Scott is there, and I'm like, Adam Scott. So at this point, I'm super confused because now I'm like, so I was like maybe thinking maybe his mom had a thing, but I'm like, Adam Scott is too young.
He's too young.
He's too young for her. Like, what's going on? And she's like, what can I do for you? And you're
Oh,
like,
is he supposed to be the son, you think?
so yeah, what happens is
He's
introduced,
junior.
and they say, oh,
Yeah.
wait, you have to, is your dad also named Andy? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, can we meet him? He's like, he died 5 years ago. And then she's hurt by this. She is like, oh, upset. He's like,
Damn.
he sees this. It's like, you guys want to like come inside? Clearly you know him. And so they talk for a while, and they're about to leave. But then Barbara comes up and has a picture. It says, I don't know if you're ever mentioned this, but like I dated your dad for a while. I don't know if your dad ever mentioned it. And he's like, no, he never mentioned it because mostly just talked about mom. And he's like, I mean, that makes sense, sure. And he says, he's a very nice man. So she's kind of like hurt. She's like, he didn't have like, there was never an impact or anything on his life.
On him.
Well, it seemed like he impacted her a lot. And then some lady appears and is like, hey, there's a bunch of mail. Oh, hey, I didn't know you had company over. And she's like, oh, hey, everyone, this is my sister, who's
Joyce.
Joyce, exactly. You called it.
Did you write this
called
movie,
it.
Mike?
He called it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, baby.
Mike
And
wrote
at this
this
point-
movie.
and
Mike
at this
is Dan Fogelman.
And at this point, I was like,
I'm glad you guys liked it so much because I worked really hard on this.
oh yeah, we loved it. We loved it so much. I can't believe you're so self-deprecating about this script. It's weird though because I had no idea what this meant. I was like, okay. And then I was like,
You're
wait
like,
a second. Oh, her
Her
character
name's
name is
Barbara.
Joyce.
What about it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Character name's Joyce. Okay. I mean, I guess that's cute. But now I know that she's like named
The
your kid
story,
after something
yeah.
you love.
Yeah,
So that makes
that meant
a lot
a lot,
of sense.
yeah.
So they, this is a very cute moment I actually really liked, is they arrive back at Budget to drop off the car. And
I'm sure they get great customer service there.
well, no, but beforehand they're like, okay, you're ready to give the car, ready to give the car. I'm like, oh, hold on a second, and they have to finish the last lines of Middlesex, the last few lines of it. And they finish it, and then they can finally leave and give the keys away. And I thought that was a really cute moment.
That's sweet.
Also, very good timing. Like, can you imagine going on a road trip and then finally finishing that book? Like, that's some good pacing.
That's the
Real
power
good
of Barbara
pacing.
Streisand. She would know.
She would know.
It's exactly this amount of time.
So they're in the airport, and she's about ready to, board her flight. I actually don't know what he's doing. I think he's staying, I guess, or
Yeah,
maybe
'cause
going
they're
back to
now on the
Vegas.
West Coast, I assume. Or
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
flying
that's where
probably
he
back to
lives.
L.A.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because he's from LA. Okay, got it. Yes, you're right, because he has to travel. Okay, right. So he says, sorry this trip didn't go as planned. She's like, no, it's okay. It was better than I expected. I really needed this, and it's okay that I couldn't get back with with Andy. It's okay. Like Anita always says, what's meant to be is meant to be. And he's like, wow, she's really good. And I'm like, I don't know who Anita is. I don't know who this is. I don't know what this is. Why I keep talking about this lady. Who is she?
I need a character sheet.
She says, I was never meant to marry Anna Margolis. I was meant to marry your father. Otherwise, I wouldn't have you. I didn't see that I will always love you. You'll be the love of my life. I gotta go before I start crying. This is the best weekend of my life. And she flies off. But right before she gets on the boarding of the plane, she calls Ben Graw and says, hey, you remember me?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And then, so can you explain to me this part where she's walking away and he's like,
Yes, I can.
that's a new
Okay,
record.
so as Mike started the show, it starts with him and his mother at an absurd hour in the morning is calling him, checking in repeatedly. He then picks up his phone and says it's a new record from her because it's literally 2 seconds after he saw his mother. He thinks she's calling for him.
Okay.
She's calling to go on a date with Ben Graw and go eat some food.
Because she's finally, she has another person in her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
There's another person.
Finally somebody who will
And
appreciate.
it's bittersweet for him because he realizes I'm not the main focus of her life anymore.
Right.
This trip has actually pushed my mother way further than it's ever been.
In a way, yeah. But in a satisfying
And he's still
way.
alone.
She said, "You're unhealthy. I need to focus on my healthy life."
That's really funny. And then that's the movie ends. That's the end of it.
That was amazing.
And then we get to see improv bloopers of weird stuff about them talking about raping people in the car or tuberculosis.
That's insane.
And there's a scene where literally they have a shot where he's like, "Oh, mom, don't drive," and then they run over a lady, and then it ends. It's like, holy shit, it's crazy.
I just need to know.
That's the kind of shit I wanted to see in this movie.
I just-
that kind
That's
of
the movie.
hijinks.
It was a different movie. It felt like they're like, we need to be more schmaltzy. This is too goofy. This is too ridiculous.
I need to just say, Ethan, though, your recapping of the second half of this movie, because this movie is so bad, was so good. Like, you got every single detail that I would have talked about, and I was like, Ethan's doing the story justice. Like, you're telling it so well.
Oh, well, thank you.
You told it really well, and it made me very annoyed that this movie was still happening. Like, you did such a good job.
Yeah.
I could, picture it in my head.
Yeah. Oh, I even cut out some scenes with the steak. Like, let me tell you, that was a good 20
That's a
minute
good
long
25 minute
Yeah.
thing.
That shit sucks.
Ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the movie's heart is in the right place, and I think that it is saved by the acting styles of both Barbra Streisand
They have
and
a lot of good
Seth
chemistry.
Rogen.
I think they have good on-screen
Yeah,
chemistry.
did you really like the bloopers? You could tell that there was a lot of fun had between the two of them and stuff.
I think they were definitely like, these jokes aren't funny, but it seemed like they were at least enjoying each other's presence a little bit. They actually,
Yeah.
I mean, they felt like, honestly, son and mother. I was going to say father and mother, and I was like, what the fuck? No, yeah, son and mother. I think that they really felt like they were actually related and had that relationship. I think that was really cool, but yeah.
She is mother.
She is mother.
She's mother.
She's mother. It all comes back. I thought this movie was fine. Like, I was hoping for more. It wasn't. It just. I was hoping for more, but also less at the same time. Like, it was more substance and less fluff, and they gave me the wrong order of that. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This movie's a mess. I love her in it. I think she looks amazing. She was 70.
Wow, really?
She
In
was-
this movie?
Yeah, she was 70. 40 years. No. Yeah, no. The math isn't mathing. I guess it's only 30 years from Yentl because she was 40 in Yentl. But
yeah. Wait, she was 40 in Yentl?
yeah, she had just turned 40.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the other thing,
amazing.
too, is people were like, you're playing a young person. Anyways, listen to the Yentl episode.
Yeah.
If you want to hear me talk about Yentl. But I do want to close it out on this quote on the Wikipedia that I know Barbara's PR person put in there. It's a quote from Seth Rogen on Barbra Streisand. I've met her only a couple of times so far, but she's really funny and nice and really reminds me a lot of my actual mother, which is very odd. My girlfriend's like a huge Barbra Streisand fan. And that's what I feel like this movie is.
Yeah. My girlfriend
Yeah.
is a huge Barbra Streisand fan. Yep.
I think he made this movie, signed up for it, thinking I'm going to be more serious. I'm going to do my career. We got Barbara Streisand. It's going to get
girlfriend loves
her
that.
audience. It's going to get my audience. And I think Seth Rogen's audience saw this movie and hated it.
I fully believe he was like, don't even show me the script. Like, if I am working with Barbara Streisand and I'm her son, we will improvise. We will do what we can with the material. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And like, genuinely watching this, I'm like, I want them to do more work. I wish they had done more work together. I wanted there to be more.
Be lucky if there's
I
any
love
more
their
Streisand
chemistry.
work after this. This is the last movie she made.
Yeah.
As of right now. The time
As of
we're
right
on
now.
this.
As of right now.
I just love the two of them together. I think they have such good chemistry. They do feel like son and mother. She's so cute in it. She does such a good job. I don't know. Does she have children?
She has one son, Jason Gould, with Elliot Gould, and
Oh yeah.
I also look at this movie as like a surrogate thing for her too, because not that her relationship's bad with her son, but like, if she could, she probably would have cast Jason, because in Prince of Tide she cast her son. Anyways, she loves her son, and
Right.
that's why she probably signed up for this too. Was like, I love my son.
She does such a good job of capturing that feeling of like just a loving mother. Like, everything that she says, even if she says something like mean or embarrassing or hurtful, it comes from a place of like, she genuinely loves her son. And you can feel it, and it feels real. It feels like very warm and beautiful. It reminds me a lot of like my mom. It's really sweet. I really loved it. I really loved her in this a lot.
Yeah, loved her. I don't know about the rest.
Loved
of the
her.
movie.
Didn't like the rest of the movie. I liked
is fine. It's
so
I think I will say
fucking-
I am also surprised that this movie is not as bad as it could have been, because it did feel like it could have been a real stinker,
Yeah.
to be honest.
The-
like, even
my
just looking at
boyfriend
the
said the
picture
same
and
thing
poster,
too. Yeah.
Like, it's just
Yeah.
fine. It's entertaining enough. It's not anything like I'll watch again, but
I think it's a good way of remembering Streisand, not necessarily because the movie is good or bad, but it goes to show her strength as an actor. Like, she can bring some really good work to a really boring mid
Thin
piece
script.
of crap that isn't that interesting. And she does it. She does it almost seemingly effortlessly. It's definitely worth watching for her. So thank you so much, honey, for actually bringing this movie
I'm
to
getting word
us.
from her legal team. You are out of any lawsuits. You have passed the test.
thank
the
God.
month has been amazing.
Perfect. Good. I'm happy to hear it.
this is the
thank you
Streisand
for
effect
having
I was
me.
looking for.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. Thanks for bringing these movies to us. Again, we probably wouldn't have seen these movies without your recommendation. And it was really good to be able to like look through her filmography, see her at different times in her life, see her, going from like director to just like an actor and like what she can do with it. It really made me appreciate her a lot more. At first it was just like, oh, she's really funny, she's really good at singing, but like she is absolutely a multidisciplinarian, like able to do different things very well. It's clear that she's a very important part of the history of Hollywood. And I'm glad she's still around. Like, it's cool that she still gets to, I don't know if she's not acting or anything, but it's cool that she's still, as of now, as of the recording of
she's still
this
with us.
podcast, she's still doing fun stuff. So that's really nice. But again, thank you so much for bringing this to us.
Yeah, it was a great month. Had a good time.
It was. The proof is in the pudding. That's all I have to say.
What is your favorite movie of hers? Like, any one that we talked about or any one that we didn't talk about? What do you think is your favorite film that just like uses her properly, or like she just is perfectly
It's gonna be Funny Girl. Dead.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You saw it when you watched it, but it's Funny Girl is a work of art. She is incredible. It's the thing that the reason I didn't want to be a guest on the Funny Girl podcast is because it's a long movie, and it would be a 5.5 hour long podcast because there are so many things about the history of it that are just incredible, and like it's her in perfection. And if you ever get the chance to see it on a big screen, run. That's all.
Take it. Okay. Well, guys, if you want to listen to that episode of Funny Girl, you should go to any podcatching app and listen to it, as well as any of the other Barbara Streisand movies we talked about this month. And while you're there, please leave a 5-star rating and review. We will read it on the show no matter what it says, even if it is disparaging the greatness that is Barbara. We would read it on the show, but we wouldn't agree with you. And if you want to get a hold of us in any way, you can email us at email@theotherhalfpodcast.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on Threads, and we also have a Discord. And Honey, if you want to shout out your stream again, of course, check out Honey's stuff. They're fantastic.
Just find me on twitch.com, not the Honeybees / something or another.
You'll figure it out. Just use the search
You'll
function.
figure it out. Yeah. Anyway, thanks again so much, Honey, for bringing these movies to us. It's always a joy having you on the podcast. And, I'm sure if you listen to the episodes you're not on, we are making horrible mistakes about the history of the filmmaking.
I will be writing in.
That's great. All right. Thank you again so much. And good night, everybody. Good night. Good night, Barbara Streisand. Hope you are sleeping well with your M&Ms in bed.